This is Rob Chappell, and it's 365 Amplified for Friday, November 21st. I'm flying solo today. It's a busy time of year, as I'm sure you're aware. I have a few news items to talk through before we get to our interview with Kynala Phillips, who is the editor of the Neighborhood Dispatch at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. It's a new neighborhood-based community news effort there in Milwaukee. And if you've been with us for a long time, you might remember her name as a contributor here at Madison 365. So we'll talk a bit about that as well. Before we get to that, a couple things from the week's news. Rodney Rave, who was a legislator in the Ho-Chunk Nation and for like 31 years or something like that, an operating engineer in highway construction and a leader of the labor movement of the union over there in western Wisconsin, has announced that he's running for Congress, and he will seek to unseat the incumbent in the 3rd District, western Wisconsin, Derek Van Orden. So we are working on getting a time to chat with him and have him on the podcast in the next week or two. Just working on scheduling that. So we will definitely keep an eye on that race for Congress coming up next year. Also in the news, you might have seen on Facebook, a friend of the show, friend of Madison 365, Rob Franklin, better known as Rob Dees, is a beloved local hip-hop artist and music ambassador and sort of grassroots educator on music and arts and just all things really important, was performing or had just performed at Gamma Ray Bar in downtown Madison on November 12th when he collapsed. And the staff there at Gamma Ray was able to get him to the hospital or to get emergency services there quickly enough. And he had a very significant heart attack and has had a couple of surgeries already and has health insurance. He's a City of Madison employee, but these things are not without costs when they happen, right? So he has a GoFundMe going to help cover copays and medications and just some time off, which is important. So I reached out to try to talk to him. I just messaged with him a little bit and he just wasn't up for a proper interview. But once he gets closer to being on his feet, we'll try to talk with him as well. I'm coming up on 3 years post-heart attack, as you know. His was much more significant than mine, I think. But yeah, I know I have some sense of what he's up against for the next couple of years. And it's not easy all the time. So I've got something up on Madison365.org about that. And then a couple of updates that I mentioned, of things we mentioned last week on the podcast. First of all, Madison College went to their first ever National Junior College Athletic Association Championship tournament this past weekend, Sunday and Monday. And they acquitted themselves quite well. They did not make it to the semifinals. I think Sunday night they played Essex, CCBC Essex, and I think they were a little bit shell-shocked by the higher level of competition. They were completely dominant in their regular season, but they didn't face any ranked opponents. They really beat up on everybody kind of in their conference, in their region, but ran into a slightly higher level of competition in the tournament, went down 3-0 in the first half of the first game, and fought back and came back and ended up losing that game 3-2. And there was a spot with about 2 minutes left in the game that the ball was on the line to go over and get a goal to equalize and send it to overtime. But it was cleared off by the defense. So they fought really hard, really hard. The next night, on Monday night, their second day game in a row, which is wild for soccer. They played against Northeast, which is the reigning defending champions, who hadn't played yet. So that doesn't seem fair that they're playing Madison College is playing their second match in 2 days against a completely fresh Northeast side. They played 110 minutes or so without giving up a goal and without scoring a goal, 0-0 for 90 minutes, and then one period of overtime and about half of the next period of overtime. In college, it's what they call golden goal overtime, meaning the first to score wins. Sudden death is what they call it in other sports. And Northeast got a goal about halfway through the second period of overtime. So Madison College did not make the semifinals, but it was some good football to watch, and it was really fun. Now they're kind of coming back into town to Madison. I'm going to try to catch up with them and just see what the experience was like for them. And finally, before we take a break, last week we had Gina Cornejo on the show. She is a poet and performer, currently performing at Theater Lila with her sort of one-person poetry / stage show Planets as Stars. I went to it last week, Friday night, and I wrote a review, so we'll link to that in the show notes. But I have to tell you, it was a very impressive performance. I was really moved by it. I am. Some folks may know I have a creative writing background, right? And I'm kind of old school, um, in that I'm a little skeptical of like. I shouldn't be. I mean, it's silly to say I'm skeptical of innovation, but I am skeptical of like innovative forms and sort of cross or like blending forms. It sounds great to do like it's going to be a poetry reading, but it's going to be a stage show and whatever. And usually those don't work out well, I find, at least in my experience. And, you know, I feel like in a lot of sitcoms and other venues, one woman show is kind of a punchline, right? It feels like a little bit precious or a little cringy, maybe. But I was happy to go, and I went in with an open mind, and I'm very glad I did and I encourage you to also if you can. It's in Verona. It's at the Art House 360 downtown Verona. Tickets are $20 for students, $28 for everybody else. There's 4 performances this weekend. I'm sorry, 3 more by the time you're hearing this. Friday night, and the Saturday matinee, and the Saturday night. But it was a remarkable performance. Didn't take itself too seriously. There was a little bit of interaction with the audience, but not a lot. Not enough to make it awkward, but also enough to like acknowledge that the audience is there. She wasn't pretending that we weren't there. And the set is innovative. The use of space is very clever. It's a very limited space. It's not on stage. It's kind of in a room, and it's kind of in the round. You're surrounding the performer. She uses the space very cleverly to create several different periods of time during which the story takes place. It's not linear. It's not chronological. It's sort of like memory. And that, when you think about memory, different periods of time in your past are sort of jumbled up sometimes in memory. And that's kind of the feel of the show. And it says a lot about what she thinks about poetry and what poetry is, but also tells her story in a way that isn't confessional. Do you know what I mean? It's the other thing I'm skeptical of. It's confessional poetry. I'm just going to express my emotions. And as a reader, I'm like, why do I care about your emotions? You have to make it connect with the reader. And she does. She will have your emotions on a string. And it's a very, very good performance. So I recommend it if you can make it. If you can support Theater Lila, it's their first production in 5 years. And it's in their new space there at the Art House 360 in Verona. Very good, very fun. So I recommend it. We are going to take a break. And when we come back, Kynala Phillips. And we're back, and joining us now from the great city of Milwaukee. If you've been with us for a long, long time, you might recognize this name. One of my favorite people, Kynala Phillips. How you doing, Kynala?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for being with us. We're talking to you for a couple of reasons. First of all, you are in a new position there at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
Correct.
Tell us what you're doing, and tell us about this. It's frankly a pretty exciting community journalism type project. So I'll let you talk about it. But tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, so I just started at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and I am leading a team called the Neighborhood Dispatch. And so the nature of our desk is that we will be in 3 different neighborhoods in underserved communities in Milwaukee. So for example, if you're familiar, we'll be in Metcalf Park, we'll be in Harambe, and then we'll also be in Layton Boulevard West, which is near the south side. The other 2 neighborhoods are near north. And so we're in those 3 neighborhoods. We have 3 reporters that will be dedicated to each neighborhood and a photojournalist on the team. And so it's really exciting because we also are charged with doing a lot of just participatory and collaborative work around what it means to report the news in each neighborhood, what it means to connect people to information that impacts their daily lives, and also what it looks like to kind of create a space or be a platform for people to share their own stories in their own time. So, I mean, these are things that Madison 365 does a lot of in Madison. And so it's really cool,
Hmm.
kind of being able to do that work here in Milwaukee. The Journal Sentinel is excellent at this as well. And I think they've kind of taken the time to what does it mean to really zone in, on particular areas where we haven't been able to do this work before at this level with this much attention. So super exciting work. Super exciting to be here.
Yeah. Um, so what kind of stories are you doing now that like the Journal Sentinel maybe wasn't doing before?
So I think a lot of it is a bit about like capacity building. So there's a lot of different teams that have done really cool things. For example, the investigations team has done FOIA like workshops with neighborhoods that led to investigations. There have been events and things with the Ideas Lab, which is kind of a shorthand for the opinions desk here. And so they've done a
Mm-hmm.
lot of amazing work. And the idea is this team is able to do that same level of work, that same quality, but focusing on a really small geographical area, which is something previously we haven't been able to do, right? So it's like we can do the larger scale investigations, we can do the events, we can do some of these project based, reporting, but do it all in Harambe or do it all in Metcalf Park, which these are small neighborhoods, right? And these are neighborhoods too with sometimes folks who don't want to, aren't thinking about the Journal Sentinel maybe as an asset or as a resource that is available to them. So I think some of it is about kind of expanding the capacity to do the work and to zero in on communities that have a lot going on and can benefit from the specificity of the work. But previously, a reporter might have been working on the whole of the north side or the whole of
Mm-hmm.
the suburbs, right? And so you can only do so much at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so it allows us to also treat every story the same. No story is too big, no story is too small, right? Like we've reported on neighbors who have complained about seagulls. Then you only call them gulls when you're not near the sea. But yeah, neighbors who have said these goals are taking over our lives, and who's going to do something about it? We'll report on that. We can also report on, an apartment complex that is really letting their properties gone, by the wayside and left tenants to really have to fend for themselves. And we can do that larger story and connect it to the larger programs that are working, to fixing that. So it allows us to do a lot of different stuff. It also allows us to like go to block club meetings and like that work is equally as important to, a breaking news event. And so that's a bit of what our team does differently. Not that no one else is doing it, it's just that we get to do it with a consistency and a specificity that there hasn't always been the capacity for.
And that is so important to earning trust, right? Like you kind of mentioned that people in underserved neighborhoods and what we might call news deserts aren't interacting with the people who make the news on a regular basis. So therefore, when they get news, they're like, okay, that's maybe not for me. Maybe I don't trust that. But if you're at a block meeting, if you're just around the neighborhood and you see the reporter, like it's a real person,
Yes.
right? And you can build that trust, and that building that trust takes time, and that's something we've had to do that we had to do the first several years of Madison 365. I want to get to your background a little bit. Speaking of Madison 365, at one point, you're from Milwaukee, right?
I'm from Madison.
I'm going to back that up. You're from Madison, right?
Hmm.
I don't know why did I think you're in Milwaukee? Why did I think you're from Milwaukee? You um at what point in your life did you kind of decide journalism was going to be your thing?
Um, it was, that's a good question. I mean, I was interested in it towards the end of high school. I knew I liked to write. I was really into community engagement and community like organizing. And so I actually went into college as I want to say it was like nonprofit leadership major or something.
Mm.
Um, and around that time, as like an aside, like I just started freelancing with different orgs, and that was probably when I started realizing, like, I guess that it was something like I could do. For a while, I don't know if it was something I believed I could do.
Hmm.
Um, I had like it's kind of like I had folks in my life very close to me who were very like against me majoring in it too. Like they were very much so like, why would you ever major in journalism? A lot of folks were saying that to me. So that was probably around the time I realized this maybe was like my second year of college that I realized I really wanted to do it because I was like,
Hmm.
everybody who I'd typically go to as an advisor is telling me not to do it, and I still want to, and I've been doing it, and I see the impact, right? I get to write the story, and I get to chat with someone who read it, and then on top of that, I was kind of getting paid a little change, so I was like, wait, wait, I didn't know that
There's
was the
money in
thing.
this.
Yeah, no, but then also just like being able to tell stories that I hadn't previously seen, like, I was always a
Mm.
big fan of the different Madison, I think, is super cool for the type of city that it is to have so many outlets that cover, Black and brown neighborhoods. So, you have the Hughes, you had Umoja, and then at the time, Madison 365 was getting off the ground. And so, like, I had such a special interest in, like, what does it mean to capture that first draft of history from the perspective of, like, me being a Black journalist, but also publications that are committed to telling our stories, in a careful way.
Hmm. And you joined our team in 2016. Oh my gosh, really? 2016?
Yeah.
Uh, that's amazing. Which is shortly after we got off the ground.
Yeah.
Um, that can't be right. No, it's
It was
2017.
like
This
20,
date.
if it wasn't 2016, it was 2017 for sure. Cause
It
it
was
was,
2017. The date on this story is wrong. It was February 2017. And when we started, we had some funding to do some education, some internship. Um, and one of our missions when we started, one of the things we were very cognizant of, and I'm sure you were aware also, that the media in Madison and in the country was overwhelmingly white. And and there was also very little recognition that us white people could not tell all the stories
mm,
and weren't going to tell us. They didn't know all the stories. So one of our missions was not only to tell the stories, but to cultivate a next generation of journalists who could be more diverse, right? And to create a space for folks like you. Now, so we started that with some high school kids, and then we wanted to get some college kids in, and you were one of the first. And do you remember the first thing you wrote for us?
no, wait, tell me, tell me.
I'm gonna show you.
Okay. OMG. Wow.
For those listening, it is an editorial called hashtag Black on Campus. The featured photo of which is a very young, very I don't know, very confident looking college sophomore or junior probably, Kynala Phillips, uh, which is
That's
amazing.
something.
But the reason it's an editorial is that I had forgotten about this, but when we did our internship program very early on, um, what we found is that everybody who came in was like, I got something to say. So, and rather than make you wait on that, we said, okay, you can do an opinion piece first, and then we'll teach you to do news.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So like you got it off your chest, right? Which your editorial is just, as the title says, about being, growing up Black in Madison, and then thinking what it's going to be like at the university, if it's going to be different at the university, and it really kind of not being great. It was
Mhm.
surprising to everybody. Um, and then then after that, you were, I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember Samantha Ariazola?
Yeah. Yeah.
You wrote a profile of her,
I remember
and then
that.
you wrote a story about how the Wunk Cheek powwow needed volunteers.
I remember that.
These are the beginnings of your fantastic career, which is now has you in a leadership role at
Yeah.
the biggest newspaper in the state. I mean, come on. And along the way, you while you went to graduate school after you left us.
Mm-hmm.
You went to Craig Newmark School at
Yeah.
New York, and while you were there, you did some other work for us, and you got yourself a Milwaukee Press Club Gold Award, right?
Yes.
For your coverage of the black maternal the disproportionate black maternal death rate in Wisconsin, in Green Bay specifically, and we just could be more proud of where you've gone in the last 9 years. Um, and very grateful. I'm very grateful that you've kept in touch, with us and kept grounded. But can you tell us a little bit? And to be transparent, one of the reasons I want to talk to you is because you are one of our success stories, right? And we're very, very proud of you, and we're very proud to call you an alum of us, and just to see everywhere you're going and everything you're doing. But to talk a little bit about, for people who may not know, what it is that Madison 365 did for you and what they can support if by donating to us, by supporting us, and by getting that buy-in, what they might be able to support for future Kynalas.
Yeah, no, I mean, oh, that's something. What a blast from the past, Robert. I wasn't expecting that. Oh, and yeah, this is like more heartfelt than maybe I had prepared for. But yeah, I mean, that was my first internship in the field. Like I think I was like freelancing for the Hughes before, and then like that's what I
Mm-hmm.
think this internship with you all was like me deciding. I also remember I was interning like with like a university department at one point, and like kind of struggling to like find my identity there or find my stride. And I had kind of gotten this I gotten the notification that I got the Madison 365 internship like mid internship, and had to decide like, can I pivot? Can I make this change? And it was such a good change. Um and I learned a whole lot. And I mean, yeah, people should contribute to you all in the sense that like having young journalists who feel confident in reporting on their communities, on reporting on um, the things they're seeing around them, holding people to account, um, telling stories from perspectives that are often missing from our media landscape. I mean, that's what you're doing, but you're also training folks on how to continue that legacy on. And I think there's so many ways too that you all are doing it just differently from other folks who might be out in the field. And that is no dig on anybody else, but like you all, I've even seen the last 24 hours, like, post stories that are kind of giving these alternative perspectives, and are making sure that you're kind of setting the record straight, not only holding everybody accountable in ways that feels responsive to and reflective of um you know black and brown communities, which is just amazing. And so being able to contribute to that legacy, contribute to your work, I think does allow for more journalists like me to come about. um, but more importantly, because it's not just about individuals like me. I mean, no shade to myself, but now I work in Milwaukee, and I enjoy Milwaukee dearly. But I'm not there. And so a lot of it is about creating, really making sure that the institutions are sustained, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
continue to generate, not maybe not generate the talent, but to support the talent as it comes in, and to also keep that going, generation after generation, year after year, right? Like a lot of what we talk about sometimes is individual success stories is cool. And I'd love to come back to Madison one day and, raise a family or something. But at the end of the day, it's a matter of like, what can we do to support the institutions that are making these success stories possible? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm honored for the opportunity to be trained by you all. Honored for all of the stories I got to get out there and the stories I pitched. I'm honored for the mistakes I got to make, and the gentle correction I got over the years. Like I'm thankful for it all. And I'm thankful that I still get to be a part of like the Wisconsin story, and like,
Mm-hmm.
really contribute to the state's media landscape. I think
Mm-hmm.
the work we do here does contribute to the overall experience of Black and brown folks across the state, even if we can't see the direct ties. But yeah, contributing to Madison 365's work, beyond the journalism, you all are also becoming this real, beacon of like, what does it mean to create leaders, period? What does it mean to support leaders, period? What does it mean to train folks up so they want to stay here, so they want to, um, just they want to give back to these communities. And I would say I think you all inspired that in me too. Like even though I'm not in Madison, like I would say that the nature of my relationship to Madison 365 helped me really gain a sense of pride about what it means to be from Wisconsin and what it means to give back to the state and what it means to be a leader here and understanding that it's not easy to want to stay here, like as someone who
Mm,
did go away for years and came back, I
hmm.
can say that like me getting trained up at a shop like Madison 365 did contribute to like this overall sense of like, no, I want to be here. I like being near a lot of Black folks and I like being in a city like Milwaukee, but it's like I want to be in a place where I can say the people who raised me, the people who made me, the state that made me, that I'm contributing back to that. So you all are doing a lot of cool work beyond building up great journalists. You're building up great leaders. You're building up strong Wisconsinites. You're making Madison and the state at large a place that people are proud to be from. And that's a huge thing. And I've watched it play out like I said, in just coverage this week, I've watched Facebook comments where I can sense people saying that they are proud of a publication like yours existing in the city. And so that is a huge thing. And I'm thankful to be a part of that legacy. And I hope that your listeners continue to support that legacy.
Oh, um, that felt really good to hear, Kyle. I love
Oh,
everything
yeah.
you just said. One other thing I want to add to that is not only do we want to one of the reasons we exist is to create a media outlet where people can see themselves reflected and feel not so alone maybe and want to stay in Wisconsin, right? Not have this talent drain elsewhere, but also um, uh, to do that we need a media that's diverse, and to do that we have to have a Black and brown folks who not only want to stay in Wisconsin but who also want to stay in the newsroom
Yeah.
in journalism, which is
Yeah.
not easy. I mean, it's not an easy place to be as a Black woman, right? Often. So one thing we try to do, and what I'm very happy we've done with you, I think, is create an environment where you can thrive as a young person and feel like a newsroom is where I belong. And if there's other newsrooms don't make me feel belonging, that's their problem, not a Kynala problem. And I hope but that's one of the other things that we really try to focus on is to create a environment where a young journalist can get some work in, can learn, can get some wins, and get some things published, and then and feel like journalism is the place for me, and not
Yeah.
get run out of the business, because people burn out. Like there's a lot of talented Black journalists who are not doing journalism right now
Yeah.
because of experiences in newsrooms.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough, and it's hard to see. And I remember like kind of contending with that thought, like when I was younger, like watching Black women leave the field. But no, I
Mm-hmm.
think you all have done a good job with that. I can't speak for everyone, but with me, I definitely feel like Madison 365 was one of a few places that made journalism a safe space for me to be,
Mm.
and reminded me that that not only is it okay for me to pursue this, right, when there was a lot of people telling me not to, but also like it just encouraged me along the way when I was confused or when I wasn't sure. Like you all definitely reminded me of how important it was that I was here, and so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. All right, Kynala Phillips, thank you so much for the time. It was great talking to you, as always. If you want to support the next Kynala Phillips, madison365.org/donate, please. And anytime, it's very easy to do. Kynala, thanks so much, and best of luck in Milwaukee.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. And genuine thanks again to Kynala for giving us the time and that candor. As you could probably figure out about halfway through that, it was both to catch up with Kynala and talk about the neighborhood dispatch program, but also kind of a shameless plug for donations because it's that time of year. It is news match season, which means all your donations are doubled. And I want to talk a little bit about a little bit more. I didn't want to put Kynala in pledge drive mode necessarily. So if you know you're going to donate, if you've donated already, go ahead and click out. Get on to your next podcast. That's fine. But if you want to be helpful and get some talking points, just listen in. We've been nonprofit since the beginning, obviously, and we decided to do that. We were just a little origin story for you. Race to equity report detailing the Dane County basically has the worst disparities between black and white people in the country. It had come out in 2013. 2014, the Madison Times, the black newspaper, got sold. So there was going to be a hole in the media landscape. And Dave, who was previously the editor of Madison Times, and Henry Sanders and I just jumped into that gap. And early on, we were having those conversations about what's this going to look like. We literally put it on the table, is this going to be a legitimate news outlet, or is it going to be three guys with a blog? Both of those would be legit, right? Have their place. And we consciously decided we're going to be a legitimate news outlet. But how are we going to make that work? And we decided to be nonprofit because we saw even mainstream media outlets having a hard time selling ads and making that old school business model work. It's only gotten worse since then, folks. And we knew that we were kind of a niche within a niche, and intentionally limiting what we're going to do because we were going to focus on people of color. That advertising, surviving on advertising was going to be very difficult, if not impossible. So we opted to go down a profit route. And at that point, 2015, of course, public radio has been around forever as kind of a model, but the sort of digital first nonprofit local news was still relatively new. Voice of San Diego had been around for 10 years already. They started in 2005. They were kind of the vanguard of this, of nonprofit news, of digital first nonprofit news. And they were making it work. Texas Tribune was the other one, the other sort of model I was looking at the time. In 2000, they started in 2008 and were making it work. So, the proof of concept was there. We knew Madison is a very generous community. We knew Madison, Dane County, a lot of people were upset about the race equity report and ready to chip in. And we knew there's a lot of good corporate philanthropy in Madison. When you go into a big company, like an American Family or a True Stage or MG&E, they have their advertising people, right, who are looking to buy ads and get clicks. And then they have their community engagement people who are looking to support good things in the community, right? And they work together, and they're not exactly across purposes or anything like that. But when you're a nonprofit news outlet and you're just trying to do good in the community, it's a different ask, right? And the corporate philanthropy people, the community engagement people, really came through to get us started. However, we continue to need the support of the broader community, right? I will also say at the time, other than a couple of tribal-owned public radio stations, we were the first nonprofit media outlet focused on communities of color in the country, as far as we know. And I think we might still be the only. And that's not true. Memphis, there's an outlet in Memphis that is a black-owned outlet or a black-run outlet. It's nonprofit. But very few in that space. We're also community journalists, which used to be a condescending thing other news outlets said about us. But when I went to graduate school in 2017, several years after we started this, the primary focus of my research was community journalism and the ethics of community news publishers. And what I found sort of the bottom line of this research I did for a couple of years, is that anybody who calls themselves a community journalist or a community news publisher thinks of themselves as a member of the community they're covering, whereas mainstream outlets consider themselves sort of third-party observers of the community. Does that make sense? The difference makes sense? Like, they wouldn't say this out loud exactly, but if you look at the ethics policies and you look at just the way they conduct themselves, you look at the way the reporters think of their work, something like the Wisconsin State Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, whatever, think of themselves as sort of dispassionate, uninvolved observers of the community, and they're just giving you information for you, and you can do what you will with it. Whereas we consider ourselves members of the community, and we are affected by this. And this, I heard the same thing from many community journalists, that our ethics standards are just as high, if not higher. Our standards of truth telling, our standards of fairness, not so much objectivity anymore, but fairness and truth. We are going to be very stringent about providing you with facts and truth. But we're going to do it as members of the community in an effort to make the community better, not just talk about the community for the sake of talking about it. So what does that look like in practice? One example is Janelle Laird. You remember back in 2016, a young lady was caught on video being really violently arrested by Madison police. And there's some debate as to whether it was as violent as it looked. It looked pretty violent, but some would say it wasn't as violent as it looked, and whether that was an appropriate response, et cetera, et cetera. And, that can be discussed. And I've heard former police officers even say that it was totally inappropriate. And I've heard police officers that I trust, or former police officers that I trust, say it wasn't that bad, actually. Point is, we reported it factually. Like, we saw the video. Instead of just posting the video, we actually talked to people about what happened in the video and gave it some context. And when we published our story, every other news outlet published with the story, to illustrate the story, Janelle's headshot. And we published her photo from prom. Because whatever you think about it, whatever side you land on, whether you decided the police were acting appropriately or not, we were going to make sure that you saw Janelle Laird as a human being. It'd be a human being that made a mistake, maybe a human being that was an innocent victim of police violence. Either way, you're going to see her as a human being. Another example, there was another video that popped up on social media of police being pretty brutal with some middle school kids at Lakeview Library on the north side. And everybody else, all the other media outlets, published the police press release. And because we are members of our community, not just observers of it, that gives us a certain skepticism about the people in power over our community, which includes the police. We're not anti-police, okay? We're not opposed to the police. We have very good relationships, in fact, with the past several police chiefs and Sheriff Barrett and others. But if you can carry a gun around and take people into custody and have that sort of power over people, we're going to be a little bit skeptical, and we're going to hold you to a pretty high standard of telling the truth to people. So what that means is, you give me a press release, I'm not just going to print it, I'm going to scrutinize it. So in this case, the press release was saying things like, the subject was escorted to the ground. And the video clearly showed that this little kid was thrown to the ground. So I called some people. I called the librarian. I called some of the parents. I talked to the police department. And I put together a much more full story. Because if you read any of the other outlets, if you just saw that video, you would think there was a bunch of hooligans and the police descended on it and broke up the hooligan ring, and some of the kids got got taken down to the ground in the process. What was actually the case is that our libraries have become daycare centers, after-school care centers, which has a lot of implications. And in this particular case, there were several groups of teenagers who were separate, but then began interacting in ways that were not productive. If you talk to the people who were there, police frankly overreacted. And these were police that had intentionally built up relationships with the neighborhood, which is good, right? That's community policing. That day, had to start rebuilding those relationships, and our story was in on that. Another example, I still, to this day, get recognized occasionally for being the guy who showed up on your Facebook feed every day for like 3 years. So long-time listeners might remember that. Early on in the COVID pandemic, I think it was still in March, actually, like within the first couple of weeks, the governor was having these daily press calls with updates, and there was just so much information. We honestly, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were like, there's going to be no events to cover. What are we going to do? We're going to have to just like profile random people. We were wrong. There was so much news. There was so much news that we had to convert from a twice weekly staff meeting to twice daily. Honestly, we had like 2 staff meetings a day for a while there. Anyway, the governor had these daily calls, and we would call in, and we would each get one question. So you better ask the right question. But there was so much information, and the first one or two, I typed them up and published them. It took like an hour, whatever. And there was one, and I don't remember what the contents was exactly, but there was one I was like, this is too much. I'm just going to go live. So I turned on my phone, and I went live on Facebook, and I talked for 10 minutes probably, laid out all the information. Here's what we just heard from the governor. There's this many cases, this many, whatever. And I did that 2 or 3 times. And then one day I didn't do it. And we get a few emails saying like, where's Rob? Are you going to do your daily update today? And I was like, all right, well, I guess I got to do this now. I guess this is a thing I have to do every day now. And I did it for, that first year or so was primarily COVID. And then, of course, George Floyd happened. So then I was doing updates on the protests and all that, the Black Lives Matter movement. Unrelated to the Facebook, to the daily updates, I got our most watched video ever was me getting tear gassed live on a live stream during a protest. People love that. But I was doing my daily update the next day, and people were like in the comments saying like, are you okay? How's your eyes? It was great. But we did that because it was important that people be informed and factually informed, because there was so much misinformation, so much guessing, so much speculation. It was just really important that we got facts and truth to people quickly, and in a way that people could digest and understand. So, yeah, we approach the news a little bit differently because it's our town, it's our city, it's our community. And we don't shy away from that. And we don't think that makes us biased. We think that makes us invested. Doing that for a few years, one of the results is that people trust us to tell their stories. And we get tips, and people come to us and say, this thing happened to me. What do I do? And well, I'm not in a position to tell you what to do exactly. I can get your story told, because I approach it the way we approach it, the way all of us do. That when you come to us and say, I've been abused, I got fired from my job, I got my son's teacher dropped a racial slur, whatever. It is your story, and I'm going to do my best to tell it for you. Now, that doesn't mean I'm just going to publish what you tell me, right? I'm going to scrutinize your story. What I often tell people is, whatever you're telling me, I believe you, but I'm going to ask you questions, makes it feel like I don't believe you, because I can't publish what I believe. I have to publish what I can verify. But that said, people come to us with these stories. And for example, you wouldn't have heard anything about Madison Elder Charles Mayadzi and his pattern of abusing women if Michelle McCoy and Jamie Johnson didn't trust Madison 365 and trust me. Michelle McCoy put it on Facebook Live, right? And nobody believed her. Like if you look at like just Reddit threads around that time, nobody believed her. But I called her and she said, let me talk around some other people. And she got Jamie, who's his former wife, to talk to me also. And at that time, Gloria Reyes called me too, a former deputy mayor, former school board president, and said I was also abused by Charles. And at that time, she ultimately decided she couldn't come forward yet, which was fine. That's another difference. Like, no reason that I shouldn't publish what Gloria told me at that time, except that I cared and I didn't want to harm her at all. And so she didn't want to publish, so I didn't publish it. Michelle trusted me. Jamie trusted me. I vetted their claims. I let Charles deny it. I looked at paperwork. I looked at court records. I ran the story by lawyers, make sure I wasn't missing anything, and I published it. And if Michelle and Jamie were not courageous enough to tell that story, and if they didn't trust us to handle their story appropriately, he would still be on common counsel. And he would not be facing felony charges. That's the kind of thing that trust can do. And there's many examples of that, of stories that Omar and Dave and I have done because somebody trusts us. I mean, you remember maybe 2 years ago or so, but a lot of G, longtime artist, the sister of Alex G, longtime advocate for abused and battered women and girls, was mistreated, to say the least, at Madison Museum of Contemporary Art and Overture Center. And she wasn't going to talk to any other press about that. But she talked to Dave because she knows Dave. She trusts Dave. She trusts us. So it's that kind of trust that allows us to tell stories that you will not see anywhere else. And that's important. It's not a knock on any other outlets, but we're filling a niche. We're filling a need that wasn't here, that was not filled 10 years ago when we started. So why am I coming to you for donations? Why am I telling you all this? I don't, it's not to brag, but as you know, in this current administration, this current environment, journalism is under attack. Diversity is under attack, and we are both. So we're having a hard year. I just had a meeting with Henry the other day with my co-founder Henry Sanders, and we have these sort of periodic strategy sessions, and we're thinking about what new things can we do next year? What's missing? What do people want? What do people need? And the one thing that he said straight up is like, whatever we want to do next year, there's no new money. There's no more money coming in. For a couple of reasons. The economy is just really tight. Everybody's advertising budget is shrunk. Everybody's philanthropic budget is shrunk. Not only that, but there's a whole bunch of sponsors that came in, 2020, who just have lost interest, don't feel the need to support diversity and diverse voices anymore, but also who are scared off by the hostility to DEI. Right? They don't want to be seen as supporting things that are specifically for Black and brown people. And there are some sponsors who have pulled back for that reason. A lot of sponsors have stuck with us this whole time. American Family, True Stage, SSM Health, Willie Street Co-op, just to name a few. MGE, Findorf, who are have stuck with us and who are still with us. But there are a whole bunch who came on in 2020 and 21 and have fallen off. So we're in a tough spot. We are not in the spot that some other outlets are, where like if we don't come through with the fundraising, we have to close. We run a very tight ship. We have 4 full-time staff. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Rob, how are you able to do this much work with only 4 people? Well, 4 very efficient people, I guess. Very productive people. And then, of course, Stephanie, sort of half-time hosting the podcast, putting together the most amazing event in the Wisconsin, in the 365 Leadership Summit. And then we have, a handful of contributors who chip in and we pay them. And there's not much more than that in our budget, right? There's, we have our sort of tech stack where we've got a few subscriptions that we have to pay for technical stuff. But when you're a nonprofit, you get a lot of stuff for free, right? Google gives us our email and our Google Drive and everything like that. That's free for us. And We rent an office at the Black Business Hub, but they gave us a very, very good deal on that. Um, so, you give us money right now, almost all of it goes right to paying people to do great journalism. And that's really, really important. So we have a couple of goals for this Newsmatch program. This is a program of the Institute for Nonprofit News, sort of administered by the Miami Foundation. There's a handful of foundations and funders put together basically $7.5 million or so to divvy up among nonprofit newsrooms. And what they could just write us all a check. They could just give everybody $15,000, whatever, and be done with it. But what they really want to do is they want to inspire buy-in. They want to inspire you to give us your $10 or $20 or $100 by matching it, right? Because they understand that it's about more than the money. It's the relationship. You give us $10, you feel like you did something. You feel like when you see a Madison 365 story float through your feed on Facebook or on Blue Sky or LinkedIn or wherever you're getting it or in your inbox, you can feel like, oh, I did that. I helped them do that. And that's really, really important, right? For a community news outlet to be engaged in the community. So that's what they're trying to inspire. And the way they do that is they give us, basically they say the next $15,000 you raise, we'll match it one for one, dollar for dollar, no questions asked. I mean, there are questions asked that we have to prove that we got it. We have to send them a spreadsheet with all the names on it. But that's it. That's really it. There's not a lot of strings attached to it. There's a couple other goals that we had. We had 50, a goal of 50 new donors. If we get 50 people who haven't donated before to donate, they give us $1,000 bonus. We got that in 3 days. So good job, folks. Good job. You came through. The other goal was $2,500 was going to be tripled. It was an additional match for us because of our specific focus. That there's another funder who would match $2,500. So the first $2,500 gets triple matched, and then everything past that up to $15,000 gets double matched. We also made that goal. It took us about 5 days to get there. So now we have to get to 15,000. Why? Partly because we need the revenue, right? $15,000 doubled to 30,000. That gets a long way into 2026, right? That goes a long way into next year. But also, if they're pledging to double 15,000 and we only get to 10,000, we're leaving $10,000 on the table, right? Because we're leaving, $5 extra thousand that we get from you, and then the extra 5,000 from them to match that. So if we don't get to 15,000, we're leaving money on the table. So we need you to help us get to 15,000. Okay. So here's how you do it. You go to madison365.org/donate. We have a new platform this year. It's much easier. If you tried to donate last year and ran into technical problems, try it again. Because you can do Apple Pay now. You can do Google Pay. You can just do the click and it's done. You don't even have to type in your credit card on your phone. madison365.org/donate. It's super easy, super fast. And maybe the best part is if you give us a monthly donation, they will match your entire 12-month commitment. So you say you're going to give us $5 a month starting now. That means in this year, in the next 2 months, you give us $10. They're not just going to match the $10. They're going to match every month for the next year. So you pledge $5 a month. That's $60 over the course of the year from you. They give us $60 more right now. So think about it that way too. If you're inclined to give us $50 now, maybe think about $5 a month. Maybe that's easier for you. And then it just happens automatically. And if it ever becomes difficult for you, just cancel it. It's fine. We will appreciate everything you're able to offer. So that's it. Tell your friends. We can't do this without you, quite literally. And we don't want to do it without. Why would we want to do this without you? Not only your money, but your thoughts and your needs and your stories and your voices. That's what this is really about, is your voices. When we started, I said, very high-mindedly that we were going to give a voice to the voiceless. And it was pretty quick that I realized that was wrong. That you have a voice. Everybody in this city, in this community, has a voice. And some of them just need a little help to be amplified because they have not been heard to this point. So that's what we're doing. We're amplifying those voices. We're starting journalism careers like Kynalas. We're diversifying the media. We're doing a lot of stuff, and we can only continue to do it with your help. So once again, Madison365.org/donate. If you've been listening to this whole time, obviously you care about what we're doing, right? Like you can't, for the like 3 people still listening at this point, you obviously care. So let's get it done. Madison365.org/donate. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. 365 Amplified is produced and edited by me, Rob Chappell, and is a production of 365 Media Foundation, a nonprofit, local, independent media organization in Madison, Wisconsin. Wherever you're listening to this right now, hit the subscribe or follow button to get new episodes every Friday. And between episodes, get your latest news at madison365.org and follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads. Wherever you get your news, we'll be there.